Viktor Frankl had a rule in his thinking: never dismiss what you cannot explain. And nihilism, the philosophical position that life has no inherent meaning, was something he refused to dismiss. This set him apart from most psychologists of his era, who treated nihilism either as a symptom of depression, and therefore something to treat away, or as an intellectual affectation of disconnected philosophers. Frankl saw it as neither. He saw it as a genuine diagnosis of modern culture, and he took it with the seriousness of a physician confronting a real disease. The lineage matters. Nietzsche announced the death of God in the 1880s, not as a celebration, but as a warning. The metaphysical scaffolding that had given Western civilization its sense of meaning, purpose, and moral order was collapsing, and Nietzsche was describing the consequences. What festivals of atonement, what sacred game shall we have to invent? He asked. He diagnosed the problem with extraordinary clarity. He did not solve it. His proposed alternative, the Übermensch, the individual who creates their own values, remained abstract, and in lesser hands became dangerous. Frankl's position was that Nietzsche was right about the diagnosis and insufficient about the cure. The death of external meaning structures, religious, ideological, traditional, was a real cultural event with real psychological consequences. The existential vacuum that Frankl documented in his patients was not a psychiatric curiosity. It was nihilism lived from the inside, not as a philosophical conclusion, but as a daily experience of emptiness. The key distinction Frankl drew was between nihilism as intellectual position and nihilism as existential reality. A person can hold nihilism as a belief and function perfectly well, using the belief as a kind of provocative stance or intellectual framework, while actually living with deep investments in family, work, art, or friendship. But when nihilism becomes genuinely lived, when a person actually experiences their existence as without meaning, their choices as without weight, their relationships as without significance, the consequences are severe. Frankl saw these consequences in the three symptoms he called the mass neurotic triad: depression, aggression, and addiction. Depression arises when meaninglessness is turned inward. Aggression arises when meaninglessness is turned outward, displaced onto others, onto institutions, onto scapegoats. Addiction arises when meaninglessness seeks chemical resolution, the temporary experience of significance or relief that substances provide. All three are, in Frankl's framework, responses to the same underlying wound. The practical answer Frankl gave to nihilism was not metaphysical. He did not argue for the existence of God, or for any specific value system, or for a philosophical theory about the nature of meaning. His answer was empirical and clinical. Meaning is real because people experience it. Meaning is discoverable because the same person who feels meaningless in one context finds it in another. The capacity for meaning is part of the human constitution. It does not require external guarantee. It requires only the right orientation. Frankl's logotherapy is, in this sense, the most serious philosophical response to nihilism that psychology has produced. It does not argue the nihilist out of their position. It invites them to discover, through direct experience, that the position is incomplete. The experience of meaning, even one moment of genuine significance, of mattering to someone, of creating something, of choosing one's response to unavoidable suffering, is phenomenologically incompatible with nihilism. Not refuted by argument. Dissolved by encounter. This is why Frankl insisted that the therapist's job is not to provide meaning but to create conditions in which the patient can discover it. Meaning imposed from outside remains fragile. It depends on the authority of the imposer. Meaning discovered from inside is robust, because it is grounded in the person's own experience. The nihilist says, nothing means anything. Frankl's response is not, you are wrong. It is, look more carefully. Something in you is still searching. That search is itself an act of meaning. Subscribe to the Psychology of Viktor Frankl to explore more of his timeless ideas.